good morning. It's my privilege to be here with Punon Guru Fred Evrard, founder and creator of Kalimajapahit. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a few questions for you. We're here today to talk about this 4-year trip that you took around the world, this Musha Shugyo. But there must be more than that. How did it start?
Well, first of all, I was born in a family where sports and martial arts and good nutrition was not an option. So I was in the martial art path since I was 5 years old. And I even have pictures of me wrestling and boxing with my dad when I was 2 or 3. So it has been part of my life for forever. Because of that, at some point in my life, I ended up in Tahiti, where I started a school and I started to develop the concept of what would become Kalimajapahit someday. And in Tahiti, I met my wife Lila. One day, I just discovered about what they call at the time around the world plane tickets. And one day I was telling Lila how cool it would be to do a trip for a year around the world, just training martial arts and traditional medicines and spirituality, everything connected to the martial arts. That was the end of the conversation, or so I thought. About a week later, she was a lawyer at the time. She came back from work and told me, you know what, I've quit. Let's go on that trip. And almost to my surprise, a week later, we were in Hawaii and the trip has started. We thought it was going to be a year, but at the end of the day, it lasted for 4 years. 4 years without going home, going from country to country, mostly in Asia, but not only, and training martial arts from morning to night.
Wow, what an incredible trip. So how did you decide where to go first, and how did you decide where you would go next at every step?
Well, we were in Tahiti, so Hawaii was the closest, and I have heard of a Japanese swordmanship teacher, Bob Montgomery Sensei at the time. So we went to Hawaii for sword, and then we met another character, Sifu Amon, who is a Hakka martial arts expert,
Wow.
who basically lives like a monk. And we trained with those two people for about 6 months in Hawaii, and then the Japanese swordmanship teacher sent us to his teacher in Japan. In Japan, we've heard of some guys in China. In China, we heard of some guys in Vietnam, and in Vietnam, we heard of someone or some camp in Thailand, and that's how it went. And before we knew it, it was 4 years.
Wow. And how did you decide to stop?
We didn't really decide to stop, but for Lila, as a female, it's important to have a nest at some point. And it was 4 years, I think, was the max for her. She was still okay to keep traveling and train and learn and teach, but she wanted to have a home. For 4 years, we didn't have a home at all. We were just international homeless, I guess. And during our trip, we've met someone. His name was Ben Boglin, and eventually he became a friend and the students and an instructor, and he's now one of the director of our school in Singapore. So we met Ben in Singapore, and he told us, you know what, Singapore is a great place, plenty of space for something new, for a new concept, even though there's martial arts schools everywhere. So we went to Singapore, liked it, and stayed there for 10 years. You have to understand, we did this trip with almost no money. We had enough money to pay our plane tickets 1 year at a time, and those were pretty cheap at the time. We didn't always have money for hotel, definitely not for food. So we did a lot of fasting, forced fasting, but it was part of our training. We slept sometimes outside, sometimes in the airport, sometimes in a dojo, sometimes in a temple, and sometimes in a small hotel or motels. But we didn't have a lot of money. So at some point, I wouldn't say it was difficult, but definitely not comfortable. But it was part of the experience, it was part of the initiation, I guess.
Yeah.
But as far as the training, the people we've met, the places we've been, no regrets. Nothing I would do different.
So Fred, after these 4 years on the road, traveling and training and studying and learning, how did that influence the KM curriculum?
Well, obviously it had a huge influence on the KM curriculum. There was already some kind of curriculum in place when we left Tahiti, but not only the skills that we've learned, some of them automatically became part of us because we trained so much and for so long. You have to remember that some places, especially in Japan, in China, we train from 8 in the morning to 9 at night with 30 minutes in the middle for lunch. So that was a lot of training, a lot of repetition. And obviously it became part of us as far as our movement, our martial art movement is concerned. But also the teaching methodology of some people, some teachers that we've learned along the way, the values, the philosophy. So even though we created the KM system in 1998, I can really say that KM was born from that journey, from that 4-year trip around the world. Yeah.
So Fred, I think this trip is really like a dream come true. I know it was for you, and many of us imagine we could do the same thing. What advice do you have for someone that would like to go on a martial arts journey around the world?
Just do it. There's no excuse, there's no perfect timing. We all have family, many people have kids, everybody has a job, everybody has bills to pay. Those are just excuses. It's part of the story that we tell ourselves not to do things. And it's not even a question of money. I mean, at the time, we paid, I think, $3,000 for 1 year around the world plane ticket. And even though I'm sure it's more expensive today, I'm sure it's still available somehow. So just go. If your dream is to do a martial art trip around the world, an initiatic journey, just do it. You're never gonna regret it. It's absolutely fantastic. It's probably one of the best things Lila and I have ever done.
And do you think you'll ever go again sometime?
Not in the same way. We're still traveling. I mean, the martial art trip has lasted for the past 15 years, basically, since we've met with Lila. And it continues today, except that now we have a home to go to, and that's the main difference. And we have a little bit more money to do it. But it's just the form that is different. The training and the traveling continues, obviously.
Wow, what a great story. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for